let's start. Please.
Yes, okay.
We can see this.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Stefano, for this introduction. And also on my behalf, welcome to our session focusing on the development, research-based development of a goal-oriented learning tool to support newcomers integration into the Flemish labour market, as Stefano already explained. So I also introduced us. So my name is Mariet Schiepers. I'm a supervisor of the project, but also director of the Center for Language Education. I will tell something short about the center, but I would like to introduce Jonas as well. You will see him in a minute because he will do the main talking today because he carried out the project on a daily basis, and he will specifically focus on how the DigComp served as an inspiring framework for the design of the tool, where I will explain something about the reason, ambitions and goals of the projects. So here you see our homepage of the Center for Language and Education. We are affiliated with the Faculty of Arts of the University of Leuven. So we are a research center, and our main research teams are language policy, second language acquisition, literacy, and assessment. So now you see our mission statement: using language. I have to move. Using language as a driving force for equal learning opportunities for all lifelong. So as you probably all know, language as well as literacy can be important barriers, gatekeepers even, for successful participation in education and society. So our research aimed to formulate answers to those challenges concerned with language and literacy acquisition, and thus achieve more equal opportunities, learning opportunities for all. So this project fits in perfectly with this. So this is a short word about our center. And here you can see our team, the team of experts at the Center for Language and Education who carry out the project. So Jonas, you will see and hear in a minute, but there's also Machteld Hobe and Sylvienne. But since we, as I explained, we try to formulate these answers to complex and current issues on the intersection of language, education, and society, we strongly believe this is something we have to do in strong collaboration with other researchers, but also stakeholders in the field. So that's why also for this project, we worked together, and we had some national partners. We worked together with the Flemish Employment Service, with the Agency for Civic Integration, and also with Mediawijs. Mediawijs is another academic center, and they are focusing on e-inclusion. But next to these national partners, we, as Stefano already said, we had some international partners. We had the University of Amsterdam, who is a bit involved in the same teams as our Center of Language and Education is. And we also connected to Stefano, and Stefano, now I have to say thank you for this invitation to show our work also on an international basis. So last but not least, we were funded by the European Social Fund to carry out our project. So also thanks to them. Okay, so we have introduced everyone, so I can move on to our focal point. As mentioned, I will briefly introduce Digital at Work and specifically the need from which it arose and which it aims to respond to. Now, I would like to make these needs concrete through stories taken from life, from students or from newcomers who come to Flanders and who want to participate into society, who want to get to work. And the first story is from Ewan. He comes from Turkey. He has been in Belgium for several months, and in Turkey he worked in healthcare. He would like to do the same in Belgium. By all means, he just wants to start working as soon as possible. But he has a long trajectory he has to take. He has to start with a Dutch language course. And he also sees language is not the only barrier, but everything is much more digital here. I can work a bit with my smartphone, but that's all. So I take a separate course for this, but I don't always learn what I need in my daily life to get do this job. And then we also have the story of Ilham. She has been in Belgium for 2 years now. She would like to get to work also. She already speaks a bit of Dutch, but she finds applying for a job not easy because it has a different procedure in Belgium, especially going for an interview. It's very different from her home country. She has to gather some information in advance, but yeah, she seeks some support to do it. And then we have the story of Karima. Karima, she supervises digi lab at the Agency for Civic Integration. So it's a place where newcomers can pass by and they get some explanations with problems they meet. So she tries to help everyone who comes as best as possible, but yes, it's not always easy because many course participants find it difficult to find their way in our digital society. It's often combined with linguistic problems. Everyone has their own learning needs, starting positions. So she says, I cannot get there with a standardized approach. All right, so these are real life stories, but at the same time, these stories resonate strongly with what we know from research. Because as I said, this is a research-based project. This means that our development is research-based, but also we started from research. What does research say? So this is some reports that were published in Belgium. It's a large-scale survey among newcomers and the participation in society and education, and also a survey on e-inclusion. And I quote some of the main results. Well, what we see is that the majority of newcomers who come to Flanders often want to get to work as soon as possible. And this is important because getting to work quickly promotes successful integration. So it's two ways. But this job search, it doesn't always go smoothly, and biggest gatekeepers are linguistic, but more and more they see also digital barriers. At the same time, literacy development is a long-term process. As I said, and especially when you look at low literate newcomers, they have to go to courses for years on end. And we see that an isolated approach leads to limited labor market participation. So it's like a catch-22. Low literate newcomers, potentially extra vulnerable because that we know also out of research, individuals without a higher education qualification and there's a risk of low literacy have a harder time using ICT adequately. For instance, to search for targeted information on the internet, such as searching for job vacancies. Now, okay, so we know that more and more linguistic barriers go along with digital barriers. But as we know that, how can we approach that? What is the best approach of curing this? So then we did a research in 2018, and it was the first of its kind. So it was conducted at our center, and the questions were: what digital needs do low literate newcomers have? Which needs do they indicate themselves? Which needs are indicated by professionals? Is there a difference between the two? And what do they need to learn in the beginning during the integration process? Again, I will quote some of the main results, and what was really important was a customized and integrated approach. As Karima already said in the real life story, like every newcomer has different needs, different starting points, so it's really important to work tailored to these individual needs, contexts and roles. So a standardized approach won't help. And you also have to start from what they're already familiar with, because they know things. When they come to Belgium, they communicate with their family in their home country, so they know some apps. So try to start from that and build on that. Also an integrated approach, digital skills through functional, relevant and motivating tasks. And this also implies that it should be integrated in other courses during the integration process, such as social orientation or Dutch as a second language. Then also what's really important is the support networks, because we know when newcomers want to develop their digital skills, they need brokers, they need support networks, intercultural support networks. But these networks, like Karima, are also looking for a good approach. So we have to professionalize these networks also. And then there is some movement from society to develop clear websites, and also the need for practice websites on which digital skills can be practiced in a safe way. So these were the most important conclusions. This was 2018. It's ages ago, and there was a pandemic, but luckily we have some recent report who tap on the same nail, and I will refer to Las Liam. It's kind of extension of the literacy of the Common European Framework that describes language ability in 6 levels from A1 to C2. And Las Liam is actually a framework that goes before A1, because when you have low literate newcomers, they have a whole path to follow before they get to A1. And they also say digital skills in this report. It's also confirmed that digital skills are an integral part of literacy, of broader 21st century key competences, of social inclusion, participation. So they should be developed not linear, but integrated. And it is technical skills, communication, content creation, security. And you all already hear it resonates with the scales of the DigComp, but Jonas will explain this in a minute. Now, back to the real life needs of Ewan, Ilham, and Karima. So how did we translate the insights out of the mentioned research into project objectives that could help Ewan and Ilham as students, but also Karima as their coach in different non-formal contexts, such as a community center or in the context of job placement. And so we considered 2 project objectives. The first of all was we have to develop a tool for learning demand detection, so that allow newcomers to map not only the linguistic but also the digital learning needs on their way to work. And they can do this together with a counselor coach at different points in their pathway to work, at different points in their integration trajectory. Now, when they know what they want to learn, when they have mapped out their needs, then what they need is integrated and just-in-time practice opportunities. So a second goal was to develop research-based dynamic learning environment in which newcomers can work in an integrated manner and just-in-time on those linguistic and digital goals they need in their search for a job. Again, together with a counselor. Now, Jonas will show you now really in a minute, but maybe I want to explain what is really what we think is the biggest innovation about what we developed. And here you can see the homepage of the website, Digital at Work. So the result, a dynamic and flexible online practice environment. So in the beginning of the project, we thought we had to decide whether the tool would be for the learners or for the coach. I think a big innovation is that it's for both. So for the newcomers, they get integrated, safe, and just-in-time practice opportunities through 2 learning tracks, and that Jonas will show. We have a fast lane in which they can do exercises on the actual internet, but we also have a safe lane in which they can do the exercise in the safe environment of the practice module on the website. And also starting from the strengths-based approach, they know already a lot, but when they want to look for a job vacancy, they can do some tasks about that. When they want to prepare for a job interview, they do tasks about that. So this is also connected with the learning needs they have at that moment, so just in time. And at the same time, there's also a manual for the coach in these non-formal and informal contexts. So how can I give support through interaction to the newcomer? They get concrete tips and tricks on how to work towards self-reliance. And it is in this manual, but also integrated in the exercises themselves. So this is an integration, so also on that level, an integrated tool for as well the newcomer as the coach. But I think it's time now to make it a bit more concrete. So I will give the floor to Jonas, who will dive into the website and who will afterwards will also connect with the DigComp. How did we use it, especially in the matrix we developed for the learning demand detection? So thank you.
Thank you, Maries. Before the end of the first part of the webinar, I will indeed show you the website, the final website that we came up with. And for that, I'll share my screen. I think you can all see it now. Okay,
yes, we can.
People, yeah, okay, thank you. And like Marita already said, the website basically has two entry points, one for the learner and one for the coach, because those are the two end users of the website. I will very briefly go through the website right now, show you some of the tabs that are on top of the website here. And then during the second part of the webinar, I'll get back to the website. I'll show you some of the exercises that are on the website, and I'll show it in a bit more detail. But now just a sneak peek of the website to show you what it is all about. If you click on the entry for the learner, you end up on this page that actually contains the pie chart in which we have contained, so to say, the learning goals for newcomers that they actually need to, the competences they need to be able to master if they want to be able to look for a job independently. And behind all of these goals, there are sub goals that are in fact exercises that newcomers can do together with their coach in order to train their independence, in order to train their linguistic and digital skills in becoming more confident in looking for a job in the Flemish labor market. So that is the web page for the learner. If I go to the web page for the coach, there are two important sub pages, so to say, here on this page. The first one is contains a video in which we explain the design very quickly, the design principles behind digital at work, and also a very brief and general overview of how you should work with the website. But we also have a web page on which we give some tips to the coach. It contains several different kinds of didactic tips that the coach can apply and can use while they are guiding newcomers through the exercises. That's also something I'll get back to once we start the second part of this webinar. And on this webpage, there is also a link to the tab about the project, which is basically a webpage on which you can find more theoretical background information about the project in a nutshell, for instance, but also something I'll come back to in the second part of the webinar, the building blocks of this project, which contains the theoretical guiding principles, so to say, of the Digital at Work project. And it contains an overview of the goals and sub-goals that learners need to master, and a downloadable PDF that contains all the theoretical information in one document. So that is the website in a nutshell. And Stefano, I think that now at the end of this first part of the webinar, we have some time to answer any possible questions from the audience. Or should I immediately delve into the second part of the webinar?
Okay, let me check in the chat. There is no question, so I would go on.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next.
Okay, then I'll share the PowerPoint. Okay, I think you can see it. Yeah, okay. Like Marita already said, in this part of the webinar, we will delve a little bit deeper into how we basically develop the actual tool, Digital at Work. And in order to do that, I would first like to give you a general overview of the development process. Roughly, it consists of 3 stages. In the first stage, we try to develop a first version of the goal matrix, which is the pie chart that you have already seen, and the toolkit with exercises. Basically, the development of that goal matrix and toolkit is based on a small-scale literature review, input from our national and transnational partners, and a needs analysis. In a moment, I will come back to those things in a bit more detail. But based on those 3 things, we developed that first version of that goal matrix and toolkit. And then we tested that first version among our end users during tryouts. We did them in several contexts. We did them with, for instance, counselors that work professionally with newcomers and with counselors that work with newcomers on a voluntary basis. So we did it in several different contexts. Based on the findings from those tryouts, we continued developing our toolkit and goal matrix. And went back to the field with that second version of our goal matrix and toolkit, did some additional tryouts, and then again, based on the findings in those tryouts, we continue to develop our goal matrix and toolkit. So this second phase is basically kind of an iterative process in which we further developed the goal matrix and the toolkit based on all the findings that we got from the tryouts. And then in the last part of the project, which was during the last months of last year, we consolidated the tool, we tweaked the last details, and we disseminated it. For instance, a few months ago, we also organized a webinar for a Flemish audience, the people who actually are the end users of the tool and who will work with newcomers on a day-to-day basis. We organized a webinar for them in order to disseminate the tool to the broader public. Now, I would like to zoom in a little bit to the first part of the development process, in which we came up with that first version of the goal matrix and toolkit. Like I already told you, that first version was based on a small-scale literature review, input from our national and transnational partners, and a needs analysis. That small-scale literature review was carried out, let's say, in 3 different fields. First of all, we, of course, had to read about literature that is linked to digital skills. And for that, of course, we read and studied the DigComp framework, which provided us with a nice framework of 5 areas of digital skills that European citizens should be competent in. And that also counts, of course, for newcomers in the context of work. And for our project, we also supplemented this DigComp framework with a report by UNESCO, which you can also see on the slide here. And that is because UNESCO added areas 0 and 6 to the DigComp framework. Area 0 is about devices and software operations, and area 6 about career-related competences. And those were 2 areas that were important in the context of our project for our specific target audience, because we worked with people who sometimes still needed some training in basic operations of digital devices. And of course, because it is a tool that tries to help newcomers look for a job, that area 6 was also important. In terms of literature related to linguistic skills, we could largely fall back on our own expertise at the Center for Language and Education. We could use, for instance, a lot of input from this publication, taal, which outlines 7 didactic principles behind powerful language teaching and education in secondary education. But many of those principles outlined in taal are also valid in the context of our project, which deals with adults in a non-educational context. But those didactic principles about powerful language teaching, they are certainly valid as well in the context of the Digital at Work project. And then Marit already mentioned it in the first part of the webinar. since we started the project, the fields of linguistic and digital skills obviously didn't come to a stop. So last year we discovered the Last Liam report when it was published. And that basically highlights the importance of teaching digital and linguistic skills in an integrated way. And that was for us kind of a confirmation that we had been on the right track with the Digital at Work project, and that it was useful and even necessary to tackle those linguistic and digital skills in an integrated way in the Digital at Work project. In addition to the literature review, we also received a lot of input from our national and transnational partners. Our national partners each gave input based on their own field of expertise, either expertise about the Flemish labour market, integration, and so on. But of course, we also received input from our transnational partners. Stefano Kluse, for instance, he organized a webinar about how DigComp could be implemented into the Digital at Work project. So from our partners as well, throughout the project, we received a lot of useful input that also definitely helped to build up that first and later versions of our goal matrix and toolkit. And lastly, we also carried out a needs analysis among our end users. So that is to say, both newcomers and their counselors. And we asked them questions related to mainly linguistic skills and digital skills. And some important findings with regard to linguistic skills for newcomers are the fact that everything that has to do with understanding rather long stretches of text was rather difficult for newcomers. That is something that you can see in this graph here. The question for the newcomers was, what is difficult for you while searching for a job? And then things like reading long stretches of text, understanding or filling out forms, understanding an invitation to, for instance, a job interview. Those are the things that are rather difficult for them, whereas things like registering at VDAB, the Flemish or the organization, public organization responsible for the integration into the Flemish labour market, that was easier for newcomers. So yeah, in terms of linguistic skills, it turned out that especially understanding those long stretches of text is difficult for newcomers. In terms of digital skills, it's especially things that are linked to creating your own things like, for instance, a CV or creating presentations. Something that is difficult for newcomers. That is something that you can see here at the right of these graphs. And newcomers themselves say, and that is something that you can see on the left, they told us in this needs analysis that things like opening text messages, using a touch screen, chatting, that those skills are rather easy for them. But we heard from the counselors of those newcomers, which we also interviewed, that yeah, they told us that for some newcomers, it is actually quite difficult to do or to carry out these basic digital tasks and to actually use things like a touchscreen and to be able to use a keyboard. That those things are sometimes difficult for newcomers, and so hence the need to also add that DigComp area 0 to our final toolkit. And that is also something that came back in the tryouts, that for some people within our target group, it was difficult to actually perform those very basic digital tasks. So those are a few things that we learned from the needs analysis. And then we basically combined those insights from literature, the input from our national and transnational partners, and what we learned from the needs analysis to develop this first version of the goal matrix that you can see right here on the slide. And this goal matrix basically lists the goals that a newcomer should be able to complete if they want to be able to find a job in the Flemish labour market independently. And as a title on the slide here says, these goals are functional and integrated. They are functional in the sense that a newcomer should choose a learning goal that they themselves want to work on. So this goal matrix is not set up in a way so that newcomers should go through each of the goals chronologically. No, we start from a can-do approach. A counselor should actually ask a newcomer what they already can do and build on that. So it is perfectly possible, for instance, that a newcomer says that they already know how to find job vacancies, but they have some difficulties with applying for a job. And then they can start working with this goal and start doing exercises related to this goal. And then they there is no need at all for them to first chronologically go through the other goals. It is really based on their needs, their individual needs that they need on that in that particular moment. So that is why we would say that this goal matrix is functional, and it is integrated in the sense that all these goals work on linguistic skills, digital skills, information skills, often all at once. You'll also see that once we are going to go through one of the exercises. In many of the exercises, those linguistic and digital skills are practiced in an integrated way, precisely because in the real world, you also need to make use of those skills in an integrated way. Now, for each of these goals in the goal matrix, we made more specific sub-goals, as you can see here on the slides. For this second goal, finding job vacancies, there are 3 sub-goals. And these sub-goals are actually the actual exercises that are today on the final website of Digital at Work. And if we take a closer look at one of those sub-goals or one of those exercises, asking info about job vacancies, then you can see that for each of those sub-goals, we made an outline of what those exercises should contain. And in order to do that, we always started from the question, what does a newcomer need to know if they want to be able to ask, in this case, more info about job vacancies? So we always started from there. And in order to try to answer that question, we based ourselves on what we read during the literature review. We based ourselves on the input we received from our partners, and based on what we learned during the needs analysis, and later on also based on what we learned during the tryouts. And as you can see here on this slide, DigComp also played an important role in figuring out the structure of each of these exercises. Because you can see the text highlighted in yellow; those are actually competence areas of the DigComp framework that can be linked to some of the sub goals in this exercise. So DigComp turned out to be a good guide while we were thinking about these functional goals, and we repeated this process for all of these sub goals that you can find throughout all of these slices of the pie chart. And with that first version of the goal matrix and toolkit, we went to the field and did our tryouts. Like I said, we did 2 rounds of tryouts, and we learned a great deal from them. I tried to summarize the most important findings from these tryouts on this slide. And I think that the most important thing that we learned with regard to newcomers is that they needed more to the point learning material. And that is because during our first tryout, we didn't have digital exercises yet. We basically only had inspirational ideas for coaches. So we had outlined our goals and sub-goals with inspirational material linked to those sub-goals for the counselors, but the counselors themselves still had to make up some kind of learning material for the newcomers. But we noticed that both for coaches and for newcomers, that was a difficult way of going about the exercises. So we decided to make our own digital exercises and make it a lot more concrete, which was also very helpful for the newcomers in the sense that it was a lot more clear for them how they should go about the skills that they wanted to practice. I've also mentioned here on the slide that we added learning parts to the exercises. That's something that Marit has already referred to, and I won't go into it right now, but I'll get back to it once we are going to go through one of the exercises, because that is also a way in which we have tried to make the exercises more to the point and more functional for newcomers. Something we also noticed during the tryouts was that area 4 of the DigComp framework was often too abstract for our target audience. Area 4 is about digital safety, and we noticed that many of the exercises that were related to area 4 were often too difficult for newcomers, in the sense that for some of them, it was difficult to get a grasp of these abstract concepts, like why is it important to come up with a safe password? Why is it important to know that search results from, for instance, Google are based on personal history and preferences? Those exercises turn out to be too difficult, and that is why we narrowed area 4 down to something very practical and very concrete, in the sense that often we had to limit ourselves to explaining to newcomers in the exercises how they can make a safe password, but the reasoning behind why that is important with regards to safety turned out to be oftentimes too difficult for our target audience. So that is why we dealt with area 4 in a slightly different way than it is presented in the DigComp framework. In terms of lessons learned with regard to the coaches, we noticed that during the tryouts that they could use something like a manual, because sometimes it was difficult for them to know how they can actually guide a newcomer during the exercises. And that is also because our group of coaches was very diverse. We had both professionals who worked with newcomers looking for a job on a day-to-day basis, but we also had volunteers who didn't have that same didactic experience, and it was especially for them that it turned out to be necessary to make some kind of guide, some kind of manual that they can fall back on while they are guiding the newcomers through the exercises. And so after the tryouts and redevelopment rounds, we ended up with the final result, the website digitaal@work.be. And before I delve into the website again, I want to say a few words about the 3 building blocks that you can see on the left here. Those are actually the conceptual building blocks, you could say, that we ended up with towards the end of the project. And they are, you could say, a synthesis of the digital and linguistic guiding principles that we had been working with in the earlier phases of the project, and we tried to combine them into these theoretical and conceptual building blocks. The first one that you can see on the top, the blue one, is about working towards self-reliance. The pink one is about creating safe and motivating practice opportunities. And the yellow one at the bottom is about working in a goal-oriented and integrated way. These building blocks are also on the website, and for each of these 3 building blocks, we give additional information about what exactly we mean by that building block. And in those explanations, we have tried to make clear why it is important to combine those linguistic and digital skills. I'll go to the website now again and go into it a little bit more into detail right now. For that, I think I first need to stop sharing my screen, because I think you still see the PowerPoint.
Yes. Okay, now no.
then I'm going to share this screen. So I think now you can see the website. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Like I already said, there are 2 entry points into the website. One for the learner. I will get into this part into more detail in a minute when I'm going to show you one of the exercises. But the website or the tab for the coach is also here. And like I already explained to you a few minutes ago, this page contains 2 important sections, namely some general information about how to work with the platform, and one other page with tips for the coach. And those tips are also linked to the 3 building blocks. And so under each of these 3 building blocks, you have tips for the coach that you can fold out and that you can use, or that a coach can use as a kind of support while they are guiding newcomers through the exercises on the website. And coaches can also download these tips as a PDF file, and then they can, for instance, print the first page of this document and keep it with them while they are guiding the newcomer through the exercises. And then if at some point the coach is kind of lost as to how they should guide the newcomer through the exercise, then they can have a look at this page, at this overview of the tips, and use that as a guiding principle for the coach. So that's it for the tab of the tab for the coach. If I go to the tab about the project, there is additional information about the building blocks, for instance. So like I told you, beneath each of these building blocks, there are some explanations as to what exactly we mean by these building blocks. And as you can see here, we also included some information about DigComp and how it is relevant in the conceptualization of our goal matrix and toolkit. So for each of these building blocks, we have tried to give some more additional information. And on this web page, you can also find an overview of the goals and sub goals that are part of the goal matrix. So on outlined on a few different pages, you can see what sub goals are behind each of the goals in the pie chart. Okay, let's return to the page for the learner again and delve into an exercise. I'm going to show you one exercise from this pie slice, which is about asking more information about job vacancies. And you can see that once you click on a pie slice, you can narrow down your choice as a newcomer, and you can decide what specific type of sub goal you want to work on once you have selected this goal, in this case, asking more information about job vacancies. I'm going to go for the exercise mailing for more information. And here again, it is functional in the sense that it is completely up to the newcomer to decide which of these 2 exercises they want to work on. It's based on their needs, on what they feel is useful for them. So once a newcomer clicks on this exercise, mailing for more information, they first get a little bit of context as to what the exercise is about, so that both the coach and the newcomer know that the exercise they have selected is the right one for them. And then again, they can one more time narrow down their choice a little bit further, and choose whether they want to practice how to write and send an email, practice how they can understand a reply to an email, and how they can react to a reply. I'm going to select the first part of this exercise here, And here we get to the learning paths that we have already talked about. So here a learner can basically choose whether they want to go for the regular learning path on the left, or the fast learning track on the right. And the regular learning path here on the left basically gives the learners some more practice opportunities within the safe context of this website. So they will first make some exercises, or do some exercises in this toolkit, and then once they are done with these exercises, they go on to the real internet, so to say, and then try to write an email themselves to an actual employer. If they choose the fast track, they immediately they get some guiding principles, and then they are immediately invited to write an email to an employer. I'm going to show you this learning track, from here on, the exercise basically starts. I'm going to go over it a little bit quicker because I see that we don't have that much time left. First thing they have to do here is read a job ad and try to tick the right answer. What's the job ad about? They get feedback to their answer, and then they go on to the next exercise, in which they have to evaluate an email that someone has written to an employer, and here they need to write down some things that could be changed in order to make the email better. So this is also a way in which they could practice their area 0 competences, because they can learn how to type if they haven't mastered that skill yet. They get feedback on their answer, and some additional explanations about things that could be changed about the email. Then the exercise continues with a drag and drop exercise, in which they have to reassemble bits of an email. They get feedback on that as well, and then they are invited to basically, at the end of this exercise, go onto the real internet and try to write an email to an employer, or first to their counselor if they don't feel sure yet, or if they at that moment simply don't have a job ad about which they have questions. So if they had chosen the fast learning track, they would have immediately gotten to the last 2 slides. They would receive a few instructions, and then they would immediately be invited to basically to start writing an email. Okay, I had a little bit more information about some challenges we faced in implementing DigComp. I will very quickly say something about that, but first I need to stop sharing my screen here and share the PowerPoint again. And one challenge that we basically faced was with regard to the proficiency levels. I'm going to be very quick here, but what it boils down to is that some of our exercises were situated at different proficiency levels, in the sense that in terms of autonomy, our exercises were often situated at level 2, in the sense that newcomers are invited to do it on their own, and they can ask for help from their coach when needed. But in terms of cognitive domain, they were often situated on level 8, in the sense that newcomers were invited to create something themselves. So in terms of proficiency levels, we were often at different levels at the same time. So yeah, and then just 2 words to conclude. DigComp has been like a very useful framework for us to structure the digital skills that we worked with. And as has hopefully become clear during this webinar, we have tried or we have used them in an integrated way, combined them with linguistic skills. And we also face some challenges with regard to area 4 and the proficiency levels. And I will stop here so that there are some minutes left for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonas, Marit as well. And if anyone has a question, that's the time you can also ask it directly. Just Melanie, please.
Yeah, hi, sorry, my name is Melanie. I work for Global Libraries in Bulgaria. Thank you, very interesting presentation. I just had a question about, and possibly the answer is, it depends on the individual concerned. But it's how much time did people in the pilot spend on this website before making job applications or saying that they felt a lot more confident to make them themselves?
I feel like that really depended on the level that the newcomers already had. Some newcomers who were already a lot more confident in their digital and linguistic skills, they could sometimes after 5 minutes already proceed to the real internet and start doing or carrying out the activities on the real internet. Some other newcomers who were still at a very basic level, they sometimes couldn't even finish one exercise within 30 minutes because they still had to practice so many other skills. And so I think more generally that has been a challenge throughout the entire project, because we worked with a target audience that was clearly defined, but there were also still quite some differences in proficiency level between those candidates. And so we have tried to develop a tool that is useful for both those candidates or those newcomers who are already a bit more proficient by, for instance, introducing that fast learning track. But we have also tried to make it accessible for newcomers who maybe are still taking their first steps into the digital world and the job market, and for them learning how to drag and drop, learning how to recognize a job ad that might be the functionality for them in those exercises. And so we have tried to combine those different profiles in our exercises. But yeah, that is something that has been a challenge throughout the project, I think.
Yeah, I think that's always the challenge with the adult training, because typically you have mixed classes in terms of background, and so the teachers are really artists in my opinion. They really have to be very smart. Any other question? I have one, but I leave the floor to anyone else. Okay, then I'll ask my question. I was wondering, do you expect, or do you know if this website, this tool has been or might be used also by third nationals, people, indigenous people, Flemish people who, because they have a background of low education or low digital skills and so on, find this interesting? Have you heard of, is this happening? It might happen.
Well, from my perspective, this is certainly a possibility. I think we also have in Flanders, like 1 out of 10, we call us low literate. So they can't perform tasks at primary school level. So they certainly can get an advantage of working with this tool and develop further the skills they need for looking for a job. So they also have trouble with these basic linguistic tasks as well as digital tasks. But it's really an advantage, probably an advantage, is that practicing digital skills is more safe for low literate native participants than practicing linguistic skills. So this could be really an opportunity for them to develop these skills in an integrated way, but maybe from the focus of digital skills. So I think this would be possible. Mm-hmm. Yes. But we have no information on this specific use yet. But we know, like Jonas said, this target group is really heterogeneous, and there are some participants, yes, who have a native profile.
And do you have also already any evidence of the usage of this tool apart from the trials that you did? let's say, since you have gone live with the full system, what is happening as far as you know on the ground?
Yes, we have recently launched the tool, and now we try through our stakeholders, to get some information about how it is used. There was a lot of enthusiasm. We had like 300 participants in our webinar in Belgium, so we feel that it's applicable in a lot of contexts. So that's a signal we have received in non-formal context, in informal context, also in formal context like in formal education, but at this point it's too early to say something about a specific use.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't know if, since we have reached the time and I see some people must leave, anyone else has a question to ask? As we said, the recording of this is going to be posted and made accessible on the DigComp Hub website and on the DigComp. So you will be able to find this, and hopefully, Jonas, if you can share the slides that you presented, we will make them available. So nobody else. Then Sasha, shall we go to the? We're not many, but still go to the group photo. So please, everybody, switch on your camera.
Yes, Stefano, I think it would be lovely to take a group photo at the end of today's meeting. So please, for those who want to be on the group photo, please turn on your camera and be ready to smile.
Okay.
So 3, 2, 1, smile. Lovely. Thank you for joining us today, and I give the ball back to Stefano.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. And we hope you can make good use of this experience that I found very interesting. And we'll keep in touch. I mean, if some of you, I think from the names that most of you are already members of the DigComp, but in case you're not and you want to follow these activities, just you can register to it. I didn't put, but I can do it now. If you want to, I have to find it here. Okay, this is the link for those of you who are not already in the DigComp. And of course, you can also follow the DigComp Hub website. The two environments will be closely integrated. So thank you very much. And thank you again, Jonas and Merit, and hope to see you soon. And goodbye. Have a nice day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Not there anymore.